You look drained, like something inside you's been screaming for a long time and no one ever stopped to listen. I've seen that look before, in mirrors, in alleyways, in the eyes of people who gave everything and got nothing in return. You've been chasing them, haven't you? Trying to prove you're enough, trying to make them stay, but all it's done is tear you apart, piece by piece, day by day. You keep showing up. You keep giving more than you should, and they keep walking away like you were never there at all. They don't see the hours you lost, the sleep you never got back, the tears you swallowed in silence. They just take. And you keep chasing like they're oxygen, like you'll die without their attention. But let me ask you something. When's the last time they chased you? See, that's the part they don't tell you. You think if you just try a little harder, they'll finally care. But people don't stay because you chase them. They stay when they want to. And if they don't, no amount of bending, breaking, or bleeding will change that. You've been running after ghosts, trying to catch smoke with bare hands and calling it love. That's not love. That's self-destruction in disguise. And it's killing you, quietly, slowly, completely. You keep thinking maybe if you give just a little more, they'll finally turn around. But the truth is, they saw how much you cared, and they used it. You handed them the power, and they wore it like a crown. You thought you were chasing connection. But what you were really chasing was a version of yourself they never let you become. And here's the truth you've been running from. The moment you stop chasing them is the moment everything changes. You think you're chasing love, but really, you're chasing pain dressed up in pretty words. You think you're proving your loyalty, your worth, your heart, but all you're doing is teaching them how little they have to try. You think your effort is building something, but it's not. It's burying you. Every time you call first, every time you lower your standards, every time you ignore your own needs just to meet theirs, you're digging a deeper grave for the version of you that once believed you mattered too. And that's the trap. That's how they get you. They don't ask you to chase. They just stop showing up until you do. And once you start, they make sure you never stop. Not because they love you, not because they care, but because the chase feeds their ego, not your soul. They like the control. They like knowing you'll break your own heart just to keep them from walking away. And the more you chase, the more they pull back, like it's a game. And you've become addicted to losing, addicted to proving you're enough for someone who never deserved to be on a pedestal in the first place. They saw your light and decided to dim it. They saw your hunger to be seen and used it to keep you blind. And now here you are, trying to earn a place in lives that never made space for you in the first place. Hoping your loyalty will buy you love. Hoping your patience will buy you peace. But it won't. Because the second you stop feeding their ego, you vanish from their world like you were never there at all. You're not a person to them. You're a function, a supplier, a source of validation, comfort, attention. The second you stop delivering those things, they're gone. They don't chase you, they replace you. And that's what you need to understand. It's never been about love. It's been about utility. You've been trying to earn your place in a house built on sand, and every time you get close to the door, they move it further away, not because they don't know your worth, but because they do. And if you ever figured that out, they'd lose the game. That's why they need you chasing, because a person chasing can't stand still long enough to find themselves. Every time you chase them, you trade a piece of yourself for the hope they might stay. And the worst part, most of the time they don't. They take your effort, your silence, your sacrifices, and they walk away like it cost them nothing. But it cost you everything, didn't it? Your peace, your identity, your self-worth. Bit by bit, you've been erasing yourself just to become someone they might want. You stopped saying what you really feel. You stopped setting boundaries. You smiled when you wanted to scream, all to keep them comfortable. but who's keeping you safe? You gave so much of yourself that now you're standing in front of the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. You're not who you used to be. You used to laugh louder, breathe deeper, sleep easier. Now everything feels like performance, a constant negotiation, a question mark hanging over your head. Am I enough today? That's the cost of chasing people who never saw you clearly. You shrink, you bend, you disappear, until the only thing left is a hollow version of who you used to be, built on apologies and compromises and pain you were never supposed to carry. You lose time. God, do you lose time? Days wasted on unread messages, nights spent overthinking, years gone by convincing yourself that this was love, that one day it would all pay off. But it never does it? Because they don't change. They don't suddenly wake up and realize how hard you tried. They don't apologize for taking your loyalty for granted. They just keep taking, and you keep giving until you're empty. And they go find someone else to fill their void while you're left sitting in yours. The scariest part is that you start thinking this is normal, that this is what relationships look like, that maybe you're the problem for wanting more, for needing something back. And so you keep quiet, you keep chasing, you keep dying in slow motion. But deep down, you know this isn't love. It's survival, and love isn't supposed to feel like drowning. There's a moment, quiet, almost boring, where something inside you just snaps, not with rage, not with drama, with clarity. You wake up one morning and the weight on your chest doesn't feel like heartbreak anymore. It feels like truth. You look at the messages you typed and never sent, the calls you made that were never returned, the apologies you gave for things that weren't your fault, and you feel it. This is over. Not because they said it, because you decided it. The chase ends. The leash drops, the noise stops, and for the first time in a long time, you hear your own voice again. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence, the kind that used to scare you, the kind you used to fill with their chaos, their demands, their moods. But now that silence feels different. It feels like a door opening. It feels like a breath you've been holding for years, finally leaving your lungs. You don't beg, you don't explain, you don't announce your exit or prove your worth on the way out. You just stop. You stop calling first. You stop waiting for a reply. You stop defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop auditioning for roles in stories that were never written for you. And then it hits. The grief. Not just for losing them, but for losing you along the way. You grieve the years you spent performing loyalty for people who never offered you the same. You grieve the version of you that believed love meant endurance, not reciprocity. You grieve the dreams you put on pause, the standards you lowered, the instincts you ignored. It hurts, it burns, it tears through your chest like a storm. But buried inside that pain is something else. Freedom. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that makes you hard to manipulate. The kind that makes you impossible to own. You start noticing small shifts. Your phone stops being a battlefield. Your mind stops being a courtroom. Your heart stops being a hostage. You go places without wondering if they'll approve. You say what you think without rehearsing how it sounds in their head. You eat alone without feeling lonely. You sleep without replaying the same conversation 1,000 times. This is what happens when the chase ends. You return to yourself, slowly at first, then all at once. And here's the part that will test you. They'll feel it, the distance, the refusal, the new boundaries wrapped in silence. They'll sense the power coming back to you, and they'll try to drag you into the old dance. Sudden messages, sudden warmth, sudden apologies that sound like strategy, but you're different now. You don't respond to bait.
You don't negotiate with patterns. You don't confuse attention with affection anymore. You've learned the difference between being chosen and being used.
This is the turning point, the line in the sand. The day you stop chasing them is the day you start seeing yourself clearly, not as they defined you, not as they needed you to be, but as you truly are, whole, valuable, dangerous in your independence. And once you taste that, once you feel the ground under your own feet again, there's no going back, not to who you were, not to what they offered, not to the version of love that required you to disappear just to keep it alive. Say it. I'm done running, not from them, from myself. The moment you stop chasing them, something strange starts to happen. You begin to meet someone you haven't seen in a long time. You, not the version of you that was edited for their comfort. Not the one that walked on eggshells or twisted your needs into polite silence. The real one, the raw one, the one who existed before the world told you who you were supposed to be. And at first, it's disorienting. You're so used to being someone for them, you forgot what it felt like to be someone for yourself. But then the fog starts to lift. You stop dressing for their eyes. You stop posting for their attention. You stop living like your life is a stage and they're the audience. And in that quiet, you begin to hear your own thoughts again. Not their criticism, not their preferences. Yours. You begin to trust your instincts, even the messy ones. You laugh louder, not because they think it's charming, but because something actually made you feel joy. You say no without a 5-paragraph apology. You say yes without shame. You take up space without shrinking first. And here's what really changes: your standards. They rise, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You stop accepting one-sided effort. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop mistaking breadcrumbs for meals, because now you've tasted something different. Something real. You're no longer impressed by the bare minimum. You want depth, honesty, energy that matches yours, not just wants to borrow it. You're no longer afraid to lose people who make you lose yourself. And that's when your power becomes visible. Your circle starts to shrink, but it starts to feel more like peace than loneliness. You're not chasing crowds. You're curating energy. You're not looking for someone to fix you. You're learning how to hold yourself, and it's not perfect. There are days when the old habits call you back, when the silence feels too heavy, when your heart still reaches for the ones who hurt you, but you don't answer those calls anymore. You sit in the discomfort. You face it. You heal through it, because this time you're not abandoning yourself for temporary comfort. You start doing things that scare you, not because you're fearless, but because your desire to grow finally outweighs your fear of being misunderstood. You take risks. You speak truths. You walk into rooms without wondering who's watching. You stop editing your personality based on who's present. You show up fully. And that alone intimidates people who only know how to love half of you. But you don't shrink for their sake anymore. You let them choke on your fullness. And the most beautiful part, you finally start to feel enough, not because they said it, not because they stayed, but because you stayed with yourself. Through the loss, through the rebuilding, through the loneliness, you never abandoned yourself again. You stopped chasing them and started becoming someone they could never even reach. The second you stop chasing, they feel it. The silence hits harder than any words ever could. And suddenly, the power dynamic shifts. You're no longer playing their game, and that scares them. You see, they liked you better when you were desperate, when you needed answers, when you craved closure, when your world revolved around their attention. But now you've gone quiet, and nothing is louder than the sound of someone who finally stopped begging. So what do? They come back, not because they love you, not because they miss you, but because they miss being the center of your world. They miss the way you made them feel important, adored, worshipped. They miss the control, and when they realize they've lost it, the mask starts to slip. The compliments turn into guilt trips. The concern turns into manipulation. They don't say, "I'm sorry for how I treated you." They say, "You've changed," like it's an insult, like growth is a betrayal. You'll hear it all. "You're cold now. You don't care anymore. You're acting brand new." Damn right you are. You're not playing nice just to be accepted. You're not pretending everything's okay just to keep the peace. You're not sacrificing your peace just to stay in rooms that made you feel small. They don't like the new you because the new you doesn't dance for their approval anymore. The new you doesn't pick up the phone every time they call. The new you doesn't flinch at silence. You own it now. And that terrifies them. Because for the first time, you're showing them what life looks like when you're not under their spell, when you're not controlled by their inconsistency, when you're not addicted to their attention. You've gone from accessible to untouchable. And now they're scrambling to find a version of you that no longer exists. They'll test your boundaries, push your limits, say whatever they think might pull you back in, but it won't work this time. Because now you know the truth. Anyone who only loved the version of you that chased them never loved you at all. And here's the thing, it still stings. The manipulation, the blame, the false concern, it cuts deep. Especially when it comes from people you once would have set yourself on fire just to keep warm. But this pain, it's different. It's not weakness. It's a wound that means you chose yourself this time. And even if it hurts, it heals in the direction of freedom. That's why they're mad. That's why they'll twist the story. Because people hate it when they can no longer use the version of you they helped destroy. But you're not going back. Not for their guilt, not for their tears, not for their panic. You're done letting people drag you back into a version of your life you fought like hell to leave behind. This is what they never wanted you to figure out. That your freedom was never tied to their presence. It was buried underneath your silence, beneath all the times you said, "I'm okay," when you weren't. And now that you've stopped chasing, now that you've stopped explaining yourself, something starts to rise inside you. Power, not the loud, flashy kind they post online, the quiet kind, the unshakable kind, the kind that comes from knowing you don't need their validation to feel real anymore. You start walking differently, talking differently, not out of arrogance, out of alignment. There's no more pretending, no more showing up in ways that shrink you, no more accepting crumbs and calling it care. You've raised your floor, not just your ceiling. What you allow now is so different from what you used to chase. You're no longer hungry for attention. You're hungry for purpose, for peace, for people who don't require you to abandon yourself in exchange for love. And the world begins to respond differently too. You start attracting people who don't flinch at your truth, people who don't just tolerate your strength, but honor it. You stop being surrounded by those who need you broken to feel whole. That's the shift. That's the freedom. You don't have to earn your worth anymore. You simply exist in it. You no longer operate from a place of, "Please pick me." You operate from, "I choose myself." And that's more than enough. And let's be honest, it scares them. It scares the people who only knew how to love you when you were quiet, agreeable, easy to control. But that's not your problem anymore. You're not softening yourself to be digestible. You're not apologizing for being whole. You've seen what life looks like when you hand people the remote to your worth. You've seen what it costs to make others comfortable while your soul screams, "Never again." You're not chasing. You're not begging. You're building. building boundaries, building peace, building a version of your life that doesn't have space for people who only showed up when it was convenient for them. And in that space, where the noise used to be, you find your power, real power, the kind that can't be taken away because you never outsourced it again. This is what they feared. Not that you'd leave, but that you'd thrive once you did. They told you winning was being chosen, that it was someone picking you, loving you, validating you. They made you believe your worth was something you had to earn by being quiet, agreeable, useful. But now you know the truth. You don't win when they come back. You don't win when they say sorry. You don't win when they finally see your value. Number, you win the moment you stop needing any of it. You win the day you stop waiting for the apology that never came. You win the day you delete the messages you never got a response to. You win the day you look in the mirror and decide you're done living for their approval. That's when the game changes. That's when the power flips. Because when you stop chasing, they lose the ability to lead you around like a dog on a leash made of false hope. You start winning the second you become whole on your own, the second you realize that peace is better than attention, that silence is better than begging, that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel unseen. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't need their love to grow. You don't need their recognition to matter. You win by simply refusing to stay in a place that made you forget who you are. This isn't revenge, it's revelation, it's clarity. It's the full circle moment where you look back and realize every time you were ghosted, overlooked, replaced, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection, a push toward yourself, toward the truth, toward freedom. And now you're not chasing love, you're becoming it. You're not searching for peace, you are it. You're not proving yourself anymore, and because your existence is the proof. They may never say it, they may never admit they were wrong, but they'll see it, they'll feel it, they'll watch you glow from the distance, untouchable, unbothered, unstoppable, and they'll know you won, not by breaking them, but by finally choosing to stop breaking yourself for them. There comes a day, quietly, without warning, when they look around and realize you're not there anymore, not in their messages, not in their life, not orbiting around them, hoping for scraps. The silence you left behind starts to echo. The space you once filled with loyalty, care, and effort becomes a void they can't ignore. And suddenly, they miss it. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the version of themselves that only existed in your presence. That's the part they never expected, that your absence would speak louder than all the words you ever said, that the same person they ignored, mistreated, and overlooked would one day go silent and never return. You didn't get louder, you didn't beg, you didn't burn down the bridge, you just walked away. And now, they're the ones stuck staring at the smoke. They regret it. Oh, they do. Not always in words, but in patterns. The random check-ins, the likes on old pictures, the just wondering how you're doing messages that come at midnight. But it's not love, it's confusion. They're confused by your strength, confused by your silence, confused by the fact that you stopped chasing and became something they can't reach. They want the old version of you back, the one who answered quickly, loved blindly, gave endlessly. But that version of you, you buried them. You had to, because that version kept you in chains. That version kept you small. That version lived for their approval. And now that you've finally chosen yourself, there's no going back. You didn't just walk away, you evolved. And that's what really haunts them, that they had access to someone rare, someone loyal, someone real, and they wasted it. They thought you'd always be there, always chasing, always available. But now they know you were the blessing, and losing you wasn't just a mistake, it was their biggest one. So don't chase, Don't return, don't explain, let them feel it, let them sit in the empty space they carved for themselves when they mistook your softness for weakness. Let your growth be the silence that screams louder than anything you could ever say. And when they wonder how they lost you, let the truth haunt them. You stopped chasing and finally found yourself.